On today's show, we're breaking down all the NBA trade deadline moves, and we'll play a game I'm calling Love It or Leave It. Lace them up and lock in. JWJ.
Man, it's been a long time coming. Let's go. And if you weren't watching, if you weren't listening, you might not have known.
You know what time it is. Lace them up and lock in. JWJ. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to episode 8, season 2 of the JWJ podcast. I'm your host, Shane Thomas, joined by my co-host, my shooter on the wing, Mr. James Washington. What it do, what it is, bro.
Already knocked it down. Quick jumper, quick release, bro. What it is.
Before we get started, I want to thank you guys for making JWJ a part of your day. If you're not already, make sure you follow the JWJ podcast wherever you get your pods. And if you're listening on YouTube, be sure to subscribe. James, we got a lot to get to, man. A bunch of
Listen,
deals last week with
hell
the
yeah.
NBA trade deadline. A lot of these deals are in full effect now because people are starting to play for their teams. So we'll get right into it. Um, the New York Knicks, this deal, they acquired Bojan Bogdanovic and Alec Burks from the Detroit Pistons. They sent out Evan Fournier, Malachi Flynn, Quentin Grimes, Ryan Arcidiacono, two future second round picks, and cash headed to Detroit. So James, Knicks looks like they're prioritizing around building around Jalen Brunson. So that deal with the Knicks and Pistons, love it or leave it?
Honestly, man, I would have saved that for the end because I think the Knicks won the trade deadline. I don't think any other team made more moves that made more sense. The Knicks won it hands down. That I love the move. I absolutely love the move. They've dealt with injury early. They've dealt with roster moves, roster issues. RJ Barrett's in Toronto now. You bring in OG Anunoby, which I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I I fully respect and appreciate what RJ Barrett did for New York. I can understand why he was such a commodity to send away. Um, New York probably made the smartest moves of the offseason. So I think you say love it or leave it. I love it, man. I love it, bro.
Yeah, I second that. I love it too. I think in the moves they made, both in season and right around this deadline, they've they've found a way to make this like they've accentuated like what they needed and like the stuff they were already doing well to try and make their team better. So they went out, got OG, got Presses Achua. Like they needed some like hard nosed, tough defensive players.
Hey, yo, my nephew actually got to meet him a few months ago.
Oh yeah,
My nephew got to meet, but he got to meet Precious Achua, man. Shout out to I gotta do it. I gotta do it. Shout out to my nephew Ethan, man. Ethan is up there. He's a baller. He's a hooper up there in Toronto, man. But he actually got to meet Precious Achua when he was a Raptor.
nice.
Got his autograph and everything. So hey, Ethan, Toyin, Kim, everybody up in Toronto, man. I love y'all. And hey, no, shout out to all of y'all, man. But yeah, he actually got to meet Precious the True. I was so jealous. I was like, what? He said he got to meet Buddy, and I was hating,
Yeah,
man.
he's rubbing shoulders with the big leagues.
Absolutely already. And I already showed you the footage, man. That game winner he hit last year. I showed you that. So yeah, man. It
Yeah,
was
but
good
like yeah,
stuff.
like I love it because like they've done more to create like an identity. And I think the identity is more so focused around Jalen Brunson. Like
Yeah, definitely.
because he's an interesting guard. I mean he's having an all-star year. He's in the all-star game. which we'll talk about
well
soon.
deserved.
Well
Yeah.
deserved. But I think they've built the team around him because he's a unique kind of player. Like he's not like super athletic. He's not super tall. He's only about 6'1".
Mhm.
Um, but he's probably at his size one of the better post up players in the league. He can score over pretty much anybody in the post, even at his size,
Mhm.
except for LeBron that possession last week.
Well,
But
you know.
but I like it because they addressed what they haven't had in a while, which they needed shooting desperately. And
Right.
Jalen Brunson's a plus shooter. He's shooting about 41% from three this year. Dante DiVincenzo he's finally settled into the player we thought he would be coming out of Villanova, like the guy that was scoring 31 in the national championship game. Like he's finally playing like that. I feel like they tried to make him kind of like a defensive kind of 3-and-D guard, and now it's like he's heavier on the three now, and he's really starting to kind of blossom. Like he's been putting up crazy numbers shooting the three lately. Like right now, I mean, he's shooting 42% from three this year.
Yeah.
So when I look at their shooting, it's like I feel like spacing was a bit of a problem. Julius Randle, he likes to shoot threes, and I feel like it's not a great thing for him. He's out right now with injury, so they had to do something to kind of bridge that gap. I feel like they'll probably be a better team when he comes back because he won't have to be stepping out shooting threes. I think that this is a move to put him probably closer to the basket to operate. But if you look at the shooting, Bojan Bogdanovic, right now this year, he's averaging 20 points a game. He's shooting over 41% from three. Alec Burks shooting just under 41% from three. Then you throw in Brunson and DiVincenzo. So that's four guys that are shooting over 40% from three in your lineup. So that's huge for them. There's not too many teams that have more than two guys that shoot 40 plus from three with volume.
Yeah.
So I love it. I love it. I think that's a damn good move for New York. And then like moving on from there, the next one I wanted to get to because I've been stewing on this one ever since the weekend because now counting tonight, these guys have had a chance to play two games and for their teams, and I want to talk about my
Okay.
Dallas Mavericks. So
I
the Dallas
knew,
Mavericks.
of course. We knew it was coming. We knew it was
Oh, it was
coming.
coming. If you guys have been following this, shout out to all the people that have been interacting with us on Instagram, Facebook,
We knew
whatever. Y'all know how much I love this move.
we
So
knew it was coming.
so Dallas Mavericks, I'll just go ahead and give you guys the deal. So
Shout
Dallas
out to the
Mavericks,
last name.
right. Shout out to the last name. The Mavericks went out, they made two deals on trade deadline day. So they acquired PJ Washington from Charlotte and they went and got Daniel Gafford from the Washington Wizards. Now, like I said, it's two separate moves. So in the Charlotte deal, Dallas sent Grant Williams, Seth Curry, and the 2027 first round pick to Charlotte for a before PJ Washington, as well as a 2024 and 2028 second round draft pick. So that move, that's one of them. The second move, Dallas sent backup big man Rashawn Holmes and a 2024 first round pick to Washington for Daniel Gafford. Now, these two moves, they went out, they got a big wing, which they needed. You get 6'7" PJ Washington in there. And they went out and got a big, which they sorely needed. And we figured that out when the season started. They went out and got Daniel Gafford, who was averaging about 10 and 8 for the Wizards. Now, I mentioned but when I first got into this that I love the deal. Now, the reason I do love it is because, like I mentioned before, these guys have played two games in Dallas now. So let me talk about these stats for these two games. So in their debuts, Daniel Gafford, 19 points, 9 rebounds, and a block in his debut. PJ Washington had 14 points, 5 rebounds in the debut. Both guys came off the bench the first game. Tonight against the Wizards, so Gafford got a chance to play against his former team. these numbers. We talked about this before we got on air.
To be fair, it is the Wizards, but go ahead.
It's the Wizards, but don't make me say it for another. Don't make me say it for another episode. Don't make me go block on it. Don't. But Daniel Gafford came out tonight. At the time we're recording this, Dallas beats Washington. Gafford goes for 16 points, 17 rebounds, 5 blocks.
Dallas better be Washington, damn it.
Right. Win's a win, and that's the 5th in the row for the Mavericks. Now, PJ didn't have like a crazy game the second game out. He only had 9 points, 5 rebounds, 3 assists against Washington tonight. Now, the Gafford thing is particularly intriguing because in the 2 games so far that he's played in Dallas, he's averaging 17 and a half points, 13 rebounds, 3 blocks in 2 games. Mm-hmm. Now, I already said I love it. James, love it or leave it. Dallas getting PJ Washington and Daniel Gafford.
If I have to, I got to make one solid decision right now. So, oh man, I'm torn. Okay, so I'm gonna go on the side of love it, but I also have my questions / my humor in the whole thing. And I can't help but ask the question, what the hell made y'all move off of Grant Williams so quick, dog? like he just came over. Dude ain't even make it to the All-Star break and now he's gone. Like
okay.
that
so here's what happened. Here's what happened. So when the season started, Grant Williams was in the starting lineup. He was starting at the 4 for Dallas.
Right.
For about the first 15 games or so, Grant Williams was shooting all ridiculous percentages from 3. Like he wasn't scoring a ton of points, but he was shooting really well from 3. He was probably shooting like 50% from 3 to start the year, first 15 games. Then, like what happened in Boston last year with Grant, his shooting just fell off a cliff. Now, Dallas signed him to part of their mid-level exception. And the bet was that they were signing Grant Williams for like what he could become as a more featured piece, right?
Okay.
But he gets to Dallas and like he's supposed to be like this 3-and-D elite level like supporting cast guy. And he looked like that for the first like 15 games. But once the shooting kind of plateaued, the defense wasn't defensing. And it just got to the point where eventually he lost his spot in the starting lineup. And Dallas got lucky because they had a guy, Derrick Jones Jr., who seemed like a camp flyer guy that made the team. And he comes out and he looks like, okay, he's averaging about 10 at the start and he's hitting threes and he's basically providing what Grant Williams was supposed to provide. Two-way guy that can knock down a shot, do something off the bounce.
Got you.
So Grant basically played himself out of Dallas. I won't go as far as where they're saying he rubbed people the wrong way. There may be truth to that. I'm not sure like the extent.
And see, I'm on the flip side, and I'm in that clique that thinks that might be true. Because and again, just like, and this isn't even like any kind of shade throwing kind of thing. It's like he's getting booted out of your camp. I'm sitting on the outside. You know, everybody knows, if y'all have listened to this podcast, you know I'm a diehard Laker fan. So of course I have my opinions on Dallas. I have my opinions on Boston, and it just so happens that these are the 2 teams that this guy has played for. There's those opinions there. So of course that's not something that I'm going to ignore. I mean, I hate to be that guy, but no, I agree with you. The numbers do speak. But at the same time, I just think it's hilarious that we end up in a position where he ends up leaving Boston, just got sent to Dallas. What was that, like in August, September? Like
Yeah,
it was in
he was off season signing. So yeah,
yeah,
he
it was
averaged
an
like
early move.
yeah.
And next thing you know, my thing is, if it's going to be something basketball related as to why he doesn't fit, that's an obvious forefront for a reason. So when there's stories that come out that say, rubbing teammates the wrong way and this and that, I'm more inclined to believe those, because I'm like, if we feel like we have to bring up something that's not basketball related necessarily, there's no reason to do that unless it's true. So, and I mean, I may be wrong, and you know
Yeah,
me.
what I'm
Yeah,
thinking is it has to be just because I was starting to hear things like how like people in Boston weren't crazy about him at the time that he left, because he wasn't playing a whole lot. Like eventually, I think once the playoffs came, he wasn't even playing at all. So I think there was a rift between maybe him and Joe Mazzulla. Maybe some of the guys on the team just weren't vibing with him like that. Like, but like and I'll preface this by saying I talked about before that the shooting had fallen off a cliff. Now, if you
hmm
look at the numbers, so Grant Williams in 47 games with the Mavericks, he had 33 starts. He averaged 8 points, a little under 4 boards, shot 37.5% from three, but he only shot
okay.
41% from the field. That was he went from shooting the ball great to shooting the ball really poorly. And he started to come back around maybe like a few games before the trade actually happened.
hmm
So it went from like almost 50%, like high 40s from three. And then he was ice cold for like an extended stretch where he lost his starting job, all that stuff. And then he started to get it back the last, few games before he was traded. But I
the
think,
uh, the irony that they're worried about, percentage from long range in Boston, when y'all's best players of color were guys that played in the paint most of their career. Happy birthday to the late great Bill Russell, by the way. Yeah.
like to me, when I look at this move, like I mean, all the off court stuff aside, I mean, we've heard so many stories about the Grant Williams thing, about how he stopped wearing Luka's shoes and started wearing Jason Tatum's.
Total
My
cop
thing is
out.
he's
That's
he's with Jordan
clown.
Brand, so I don't think that's necessarily the reason. It
I
it
don't
probably was just
I told you, I gave you my opinion the
allergies
other
because he seemed
day.
like a great dude. He seemed like a great dude.
I gave you my opinion the other day. I think that is an absolute idiotic excuse. If and of course, I'll use this as another reason I don't care. If the front office in Dallas, because they're the ones that have the final say so, if the front office in Dallas decided that it was necessary to move a player over the shoes that he wore,
Yeah,
I
I don't
don't
buy.
want to I don't want to play for you anyway.
Yeah, I
That's
don't buy
that's
that.
idiotic. Bottom line, the number one reason I'm here is to help this team win. It doesn't matter what's on my feet.
Yeah.
If I'm here to help you win, and you're gonna move me over something that I'm wearing on my feet, no. And that's why I told you the other day. That's why I don't believe that was the reason. I don't think that had anything to do with it.
Yeah, to me, I think it's definitely basketball related because if you think about it,
It better be.
because it's the issue is it's like people thought best case scenario, Grant Williams could come in and basically become like PJ Tucker, where he's a smaller guy but he can defend across positions. Like we knew
But
he
I
was
don't I
slow of
don't
foot,
feel like I don't feel like Grant is that dog though.
right? Like
I,
he's a guy that yaps a lot.
mhm. He's a Chihuahua,
We
man.
saw him get into it with Kevin Durant. We've seen him get into it with LeBron. We've seen him
And
get
he
into it with a lot of these guys.
any light skin. He's a Chihuahua, bro. They bark, and then as soon as you
Yeah,
snap at them or like stomp in front of them, they run
right.
away.
Like I just think from a basketball standpoint, the things that they brought him in to do, he wasn't doing at a high enough level to justify them not
I
upgrading that
agree.
position.
I agree.
So when you go and you get a PJ Washington, a guy who's had 40-point games in the league, he's been toiling away in Charlotte. He's been one of the few guys with a professional approach on that team. You go and get a guy like that who's from Dallas, grew up in Frisco. He gets to come home. He fits the mold of a big athletic wing with wingspan that they didn't have. Grant Williams, short arms, 6'6", slow footed. You get a 6'7" guy with 7'2" wingspan that can move his feet, can hit a shot. You're hoping that he can provide some of the things that Grant couldn't do, which is off the dribble penetration, being able to hit shots at a respectable clip and defend. So, you know, for a couple games, he's kind of started a little bit slow, but I think he'll work his way into it because obviously you're playing with Luka and Kyrie. But the guy that is making a crazy impact, and I feel like definitely moves the needle for them is Gaff.
Mm.
Because for the first time since 2011, Dallas can say right now they have two like bona fide centers right now. You have one of the top rookies right now, Derek Lively. He's out with an injury, but he's been better than advertised in games. He's been basically their starting center. You
Mm.
go get Daniel Gafford, who provides the same stuff that Lively provides. He blocks more shots per game. He's a slightly bigger body, but he brings the same intensity, the same athleticism, the same above the rim play. So you basically have two guys that do the exact same thing at a high
Right.
level. So
Right.
you could have instead of having one guy that does everything that the Mavericks need in the starting lineup, catching lobs, protecting the paint, all of that. You have two guys now. So you can have that on your second unit and on your starting unit. That's something Dallas has not had since 2011. So I said I love it. What do you say on
I mean,
that? Love it or
it's a tough in between. I mean, I guess by default, I'm stuck saying I love it because I don't
do you
really.
feel like it moves the needle for Dallas? Do you feel like it can help get them from right now the eighth spot to somewhere closer to where they're not a play-in team? They're already in the playoffs.
I, from that standpoint, I'm gonna say no. Honestly, um,
Interesting.
I'm gonna say no because and the only reason I'm gonna say it, I'm not gonna say that it can't work long term. I'm gonna say that we haven't seen long term. We've only seen a few games.
Yeah,
So
that's
no,
fair.
I from what I've seen so far, I would have to say leave it. Only because, like I said, I mean it's I don't want to be and this isn't just a Dallas thing. I don't want to be that fan or that type of that type of watcher, that type of fan that's gonna be like forming that judgment based off of a couple of games that I've seen. So I right now, because there's no in between, I would have to say leave it. Only because, just to be fair, I would want to see more. I it would be easier for me to make a decision early on if I hadn't, as weird as this sounds, if I hadn't have seen anything yet. And I know that kind of sounds, a little contradictory when we have seen Gafford and he has looked well. But no, I would have to go leave it right now. That's and again, I wanna make sure that I throw an asterisk on that and say it's not a knock on anybody involved in the move. I'm going to leave it because I don't want to reach an immediate judgment just based off of immediate results. If that makes sense. You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, the sample size is small, but the first win was against OKC, and they blew OKC out. They had Shea and Chet and everybody, and they blew them out. So I was like, okay, that's interesting. And then
I
obviously
mean
you
to
play
be
Washington, which is a night off, but
but see another
that game by
thing,
like seven. So
and that's another reason why I say like small sample sizes can be deceiving.
yeah.
Everybody that listens to this podcast, I love every single one of you, by the way. Um, my Lakers, we beat Boston. What was that, last week or the week before? LeBron and AD didn't play.
Mhm.
We beat Boston. So I mean, yeah, shout out to Boston. Screw y'all. You know what I'm saying? That's why I say like small sample sizes can only mean so much.
Right.
Like
Like the one point I want to make before we move on, like I get what you're saying about how you just want to see like more
hmm
from it. I
hmm
think like just based on like potential, all that, like I really like the moves. But
Yeah.
the important thing, I think, what we have to see from now on is something we haven't necessarily seen from Dallas so far, and that's health. They've had a lot of guys get banged up.
hmm
Lively's been in and out of the lineup with injury. Kleba missed like Maxi Kleba missed, I don't know, like 2, 3 months. He had a dislocated pinky toe, which sounds terrible.
And to be fair, but to be fair with that argument though, injury reports and new players are two things that are like small sample sizes can only mean so much.
No, but I'm saying in the grand scheme, if we're saying like, does this move the needle? I think it moves
hmm
the needle provided health because Kyrie has missed games, Luca missed a couple games, Kleber's been out. Like they've had a bunch of guys hurt. Dante Exum, who was a revelation at the beginning, he's been
hmm
hurt. Josh Green missed games. Like pretty much all their starters have missed some time. So
hmm
like in order for this to truly be a needle mover, the way I think it could be is just health. If those dudes are healthy, we might see them really start climbing up. They won 5 in a row now. Seems like they're starting to get some guys back. We'll see what happens. But
Okay.
we'll go. We just mentioned OKC, so we will go to them. They made a move on trade deadline day. They went out and they went to Charlotte. Seemed like Charlotte, they can't the guys that they're giving out, I guess, are not good enough for them. So they they gotta make a move. So they went out and they acquired OKC went out and acquired Gordon Hayward from Charlotte in exchange for Vasilije Micic, Trey Mann, Davis Bertans, and draft picks. Now, Hayward to OKC, 33-year-old veteran. He's averaging 14 and a half, about 5 rebounds, 5 assists a game in 25 games this year. OKC right now, it's interesting that they make this move. They're third in the West. So, James, Gordon Hayward to OKC, get him a much needed vet. Love it or leave it.
Gordon Hayward to OKC, it's not even a question to me. I absolutely freaking love it. I mean, your casual fan based off that move, everything that OKC just gave up, they probably couldn't even tell you who those guys are. One thing we know about Gordon Hayward is that when he's healthy, he shows up. So I absolutely love that move for OKC, especially in a position where, just like you said, 33-year-old vet. Outside of Gordon Hayward, who's the oldest player on that team? They've gotten rid of Steven Adams, who they need vet presence on that team. That's what takes a good team up to the level of being a great team. And Gordon Hayward can be that guy. Is he a champ? No. But he has enough experience to where he can provide that insight to where he can possibly get a team there. He reminds me a lot of a guy of like, say, like an Al Horford. Like he's one of those vet guys that can bring enough experience to where you can hopefully get a team there. No guarantee that it'll happen. But no,
but also
Gordon
in that he can still play, you
at
know.
Gordon Hayward in OKC, and I'll keep mine short and sweet, man. And we can debate it if you want. Short and sweet, Gordon Hayward to OKC. I love it. I love it.
You know, I've always liked Gordon Hayward. It is the only problem with the issue I have with Gordon Hayward is the fact that he's only played 25 games.
He took your girlfriend, didn't he?
No, I didn't take my girlfriend.
He's
He might have took,
he went
somebody
he
else's
went
girlfriend.
he went to that slick back and turned into Mr. Steal Your Girl, didn't he? He's Mr. Steal Your Girl.
He
Man,
went from
that's
Gordon
what
Hayward to G Money.
that's what
No, I'm gonna say it's funny because when I first thought about it, I wanted to say love it, and I still might love it eventually. But right now, I'm gonna say leave it, and here's why.
Hmm.
And this may sound contradictory, but hear me out on that. So you got to wonder. It's like OKC's been rolling. Like I said, they've been as high as number one in the West. They've been as low as about fourth over the last couple weeks. It's real tight at the top.
Which isn't a bad swing.
Right. It's not a bad place to be. Um, so there's always the question of, okay, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. But I think with OKC, on one hand, I like it because it's a rare move for a proven veteran that I think he fills in a position of need because if you plug him in, say he comes in and he starts, suddenly you have a five of Shea, Josh Giddey, Lou Dort, Hayward, and then you have Chet.
Mhm.
So you got guys that can shoot in that lineup. You got defense in that lineup. You got all these things.
Hell of a lineup.
It's a great lineup on paper. Games aren't played on paper though. I want to see, like I'm with you about the whole Dallas move that you said when you said you would leave it. I'm leaving it because I just want to see if Gordon Hayward can be available. If he's able to be available and actually contribute for them, it could be a major boon for them. Now I don't know how much it necessarily moves the needle, but it is something that they needed. So I'm gonna just say leave it just because I'm not sure about Gordon Hayward's health. Like when he is healthy, he's very productive, as you see with the
Uh,
average.
no, I feel you.
But
I feel you on that. I feel you on that. My only counter would be, again, like I say, the reason I say love it is because of the veteran presence and trying to build up the younger guys. I guess I look at it as a love it perspective because I'm like, everybody that they gave up to get him, what did they provide that Gordon Hayward can't?
right, that's a good point. I mean, like I said, I mean they gave up guys that weren't exactly playing.
Right.
So
I feel like they gave up pennies to get a dollar. And that's the reason I say I love it, because Gordon Hayward is somebody, even though his health might not be the greatest right now,
he is a
when he
former All Star.
when
So
he is healthy, exactly. When he is healthy, he is somebody that can definitely move that needle. The guys they gave up for him are all question marks.
right, right,
So from that standpoint, I love the move.
yeah, I get. Like I said, it could sound contradictory. I could see how you could
I
love it,
feel you.
and a part
Yeah,
of me
yeah.
does love it,
Yeah, yeah, I
but
feel you.
I have to go the other way just because it seems like it's more. Even on one hand, on paper, it seems like a move they needed to make. On this side, it's it's almost like they're taking a gamble just
I
because
feel
he
you.
hasn't been available.
I feel you.
Now, before we get to this next segment, I just want to let you guys know that if you have made it this far, we do want to thank you for making us a part of your day. Make sure you're following us wherever you get your podcasts. We're on almost every platform. We're on Anchor, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts. If you are on Apple Podcasts, be sure to rate us, review, and subscribe to the podcast. If you're listening to this on YouTube, make sure you hit like, hit subscribe, hit that notification bell to be notified whenever we release a new episode. Now, moving on, we got one more big deal I think that's big, and we got a few smaller ones we want to get to. Now, the Phoenix Suns, they went out and they got some perimeter defense and some muscle. They went out and they got Royce O'Neal from Brooklyn, and they went and acquired David Roddy from Memphis. These deals for David Roddy, the Suns gave up a future pick swap and Yuta Watanabe, who was one of the guys we talked about that we liked coming to Phoenix.
Hmm?
So I think that's interesting. And then Royce O'Neal gets acquired from Brooklyn. Suns get they gave up 3 future second round picks and additional salaries to be determined. That they may have been determined already. I didn't have that in my notes, but
Yeah, I
yeah.
think they were.
So James, the Suns go out and get a Royce O'Neal and David Roddy to shore up kind of their front line wing position, kind of that 3-4 spot. So Royce O'Neal, David Roddy, love it or leave it.
I'm like you on the last one where I'm probably gonna contradict myself. To me, on paper, the move sounds absolutely idiotic. But when I think about if Phoenix is really trying to make a run, which we can't lie, that's already difficult for them this season. That's something that's gonna be difficult for them. It makes sense.
That
It
makes
make
sense.
it that makes sense. If you know, you know. It makes sense for them if they're trying to make a run because when it comes to the postseason, depth is everything. So I get it from that perspective, but from what you gave up to make this happen, this for me would be another one where I would have to say I would leave it. It just it doesn't for some reason it doesn't mesh well with me. It doesn't make sense. I feel like again, just like we talked about in the last move, you're bringing in players that I'm left wondering how much time are you really going to give them on the floor? Um, it's just one of those questionable things for me to where I feel like I would have left it on the table. I don't think that it really moves the needle enough to where it puts me in a position where I'm like this needed to happen or I have to have this. I would have say I would have left it. I'd leave it.
Yeah, like I'm gonna say leave it, and the reason I say leave it is just because I just feel like it's lateral. Um,
Mhm.
because I mean Watanabe was there for like 3 and D. Didn't really hear much of him this year, but I mean Phoenix in general. I mean they've been kind of inconsistent. They've looked really good at times, but they've also had a bunch of guys out. So it's like you don't really have a good kind of gauge on like how good they are. I I'm not like a big Yusuf Nurkic guy right now. Like he to me he feels like more of a stopgap move. Like if you have a chance to get like a better center down the line, you'll do that.
Of
Um,
course.
to me, it just seemed like I get you want to have some depth there, but they signed a lot of guys for that very reason, and they still have issues with depth. So I'm not like a huge David Roddy guy, and Royce O'Neal. I kind of liked him in Utah. Felt like he was getting some minutes in Brooklyn, but to me, it just seems a little too lateral. It's like they've acquired so many of these guys to provide depth, but it's like, it seems like it's just bodies at this point. Like
To
the
me, it
only guy,
wasn't. To me, it wasn't lateral because Phoenix gave up fewer guys and more picks.
I just think it's lateral because it doesn't really, to me at least right now, I say it's lateral because I don't think it necessarily makes them better than they were before. I just
No,
think you
but
just
no,
add
but
bodies.
no. I agree, but at the same time, no. What I was saying, the reason I don't think it's lateral is because if I'm giving up fewer players and more picks, I'm giving up more of my future to get guys that aren't necessarily going to make me better. To me, for Phoenix, that's a step backwards.
Okay, that makes sense. I just think
That
like I said,
makes sense.
the only guy who they've acquired that I really am impressed with the guy that they brought in was Grayson Allen. He's been excellent. Um, he's been around like the 50, 40, almost 90 all year.
He ain't,
He's been a revelation for them,
he ain't been
and
tripping.
I ain't tripping. So shout out to Hoop and Ted Cruz for providing the buckets. He's done really well, given that they haven't had Brad Beal for stretches,
Mhm.
and I like his addition probably more than anybody else they've acquired.
I can
Like I
see
said,
that. I can see that.
Royce and Roddy, they're being brought there for defense and toughness. So we'll see how that goes. Now, this could be a situation where if you have to lean on them heavily once you get to the playoffs, that might be a completely different deal. I don't know if you want that if you're Phoenix. But if Royce O'Neal's done well, like I said, in Utah, he's had some good moments in the playoffs, that kind of thing. David Roddy, kind of unproven, but he's had minutes in a rotation spot for Memphis. So,
Hmm.
but yeah, I say leave it. I just feel like it's a little bit too. It doesn't feel like a splash, and not necessarily saying it needed to be a splash, but it
Right.
just doesn't really excite me at all.
No,
So
no, definitely not.
So we got a couple more things we want to get to. There's a bunch of smaller deals, and then a couple guys that were waived and then added, through buyouts, claimed off waivers, whatever. So looking at the smaller deals, so James, we're gonna kind of go through these kind of fast, but Buddy Hield to the Sixers. They finally granted Furkan Korkmaz his trade request that he was denied like 3 times. So he's finally been shipped. He's going to the Indiana Pacers along with Marcus Morris and 3 future second round picks. So James, Buddy Hield to the Sixers. Love it or leave it.
No hesitation. I absolutely freaking love it. I I any team in this league, I don't care what numbers say because this man can pop out at any time. I think any team that gets a player like Buddy Hield is winning. I I love it 100%. Buddy Hield is that kind of guy. He's going to give you the scoring that you need, in those rare instances. I don't even know if I want to say rare, but in those clutch moments, he can give you the defense that you need. Like Buddy is that kind of guy that is going to be the right move at the right time. I
Can
I
never have
honestly,
enough shooting. Can
yeah,
never
I
have enough shooting.
Yeah, I don't even know how. I mean, there's really no other way to put it, man. Like as a Laker fan, as soon as I saw that he was getting moved to Philly, I was talking to some of my students at work the other day, and there I had one of my guys, he's constantly checking his phone. Mr. Washington, yo, did you see that Buddy Hill, got traded to Philly? I was like, man, shut up. Like, I didn't even want to hear it. I was like, man, leave me alone. I was like, because he was already supposed to be a Laker. Like, I don't want to hear that. Like, it annoyed the hell out of me, bro. It annoyed the hell
Yeah.
out of me. Like, I was like, he's already supposed to.
Another guy your squad misses out on.
Exactly. I was like, yeah, I was like, like the Lakers are the kind of team where we're like, oh, we're running for Buddy Hill, we're running for Miles Turner. And next thing you know, the Lakers have signed Jalen Suggs. Like, you know what I mean? Like it, yeah, like, and that's no knock on Jalen. If you hear this, I don't care if you're offended or not. Make sure you listen to the JWJ podcast. We can be found on all outlets. But no, that's my thing. Like any team in the league would be happy to have a guy like Buddy Hield. So I immediately say love it for Philly, especially because they're going to need to fill gaps as much as possible for the next few weeks, with Joel Embiid being out, which I hate it for him. I mean,
It sucks. Me, he was having a great year,
he
and
really was.
I hated.
Yeah, another MVP season.
Right.
It's
I
a
mean,
terrible, terrible situation for him.
yeah, I think when I look at the move, I love it too.
Mhm,
Um, just because, like I said, you can never have enough shooting.
mhm.
I actually love it, and we haven't necessarily done this for all these, but this one I feel like we can. I love what Indiana did at the deadline
Yeah, yeah,
because I mean, when you go and you get Cork Maz, you get Marcus Morris, like that's two guys that could be in part of your rotation right now. Like Cork Maz was coming off the bench for Philly, but he's a steady option for 3 pointers. Marcus Morris is a good shooter as well. I feel like
yeah,
Indiana, they also traded for Doug McDermott. So I like what Indiana did at the deadline. I love what they did because they added shooting across positions. You added you added a guy at the two, a guy at the four, a guy at the three. Doug McDermott's played there before. So I mean you add some familiar faces too. For Philly, love it because Tyrese Maxey is a budding star. He's in the All-Star game too, right? So yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, he
So
is.
like getting him more guys that he can kick the ball to. Like I like it on both tips for Indiana. They're trying to make a leap by adding more shooting. They're well coached. They have an all-star point guard. I think both teams won on this. I think I love it for both teams. Um, moving on, we got Pat Bev to Milwaukee for campaign and a 2027 second round pick. Pat Bev to the Bucks. Love it or leave it.
Oh, man. I see. This
Any
is
teams
another.
that Pat Bev gonna play on. But anyway, I digress.
This is. I know. This is another one that I feel is a little unfair. Um, because I've seen Pat Bev when it comes to I've seen Pat Bev when it comes to what he's done since he's been in Milwaukee. That would force me to say I love it. Um,
I love it.
from the time, no, ain't no leather couches around here, bro. If you know, you know, and if you are listening and you know, ah,
My name's
ah,
Jennifer. I'm 18.
hey, JW. All right. Um, no, so it's that's Shay, shit. Hey, we're gonna have video. I promise y'all. We're working on video. And at that point, we're really gonna have to straighten our faces because right now, like right now, we on some bull. Like, look, but oh God, I hate it. I hate it, but I love it.
All right, but
It-
all right. Pat Bev to the Bucks. Go.
So, all right, shut up. So, no, I honestly that I never thought I would say this about something involving Pat Bet. What are you doing? Why are you
Go, man.
sitting
I
there
ain't
with
good.
your
I'm good. I'm good.
you sitting there with your hand over your face like you got okay. No, so I never thought I would say something like this about Patrick Beverly, bro. I love the move. I love the move. I really do. And the reason I say that is because a lot of people want to give Pat Bev flack because he's like that drama starter, the fire starter. He's that guy that's gonna constantly cause drama, right? But at the same time, I think a lot of people ignore that he is a very, very intelligent ball player. And that's why I say it's a little biased giving this opinion now, a week or so after he's been moved, because we've already seen what he can do. There was a game a few days ago where I think it was in the first quarter of the game, he was coming off the bench. He hadn't even subbed into the game yet. And during the timeout, he had grabbed the clipboard and was over there drawing up a play. And to me, I was kind of torn in that moment. I was like, am I more impressed with Pat Bev pulling a move like this? Or am I more annoyed at the fact that Pat Bev is doing this when y'all just got rid of a perfectly good coach to hire this random guy that won a ring, 15 years ago and won coach of the year like 20 years ago. But anyway, I digress. Shane, what you think? I'm not going to take shots at that former Boston coach right now because it's not worth it.
All right, so I'm gonna say leave it, and here's why.
Really?
While I like Pat Bev, I like his defense. I like his toughness.
He's a
Like that
dog, man.
he's, for a lack of a better term, a shit starter. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I'm just wondering, is that the move? Because I don't because to me, the defense has suffered because they didn't like Adrian Griffin's plan. They didn't buy into his defensive schemes, whatever. And on top of that, you gave up Drew Holiday, which we talked about before on previous episodes of the JWG podcast. Check out, matter of fact, check out season 2, episode 1, where we talk about the Dame trade with Drew Holiday and all that. But anyway, you got rid of Drew Holiday. Team's not very good defensively.
Dollar becomes a buck.
Dollar becomes a buck. Check it out.
Shout out to my
Make
homie
sure you leave a
on
comment.
that. Shout out to my homie coming up with that title. That is one of the dopest titles we've had. Real talk.
You're welcome. But like, no, I just think like, to me, I don't think it. While Pat Bev seems like a winning player, I just don't think he necessarily covers up like the stuff they're bad at. Because you can't play him and Dame together.
Yeah, I mean, I
And
mean,
I just
I think
like,
the reason now, just on a slight counter, the reason I like it is if we look at Dame, we look at Pat Bev, it's easy for us to agree on which one of those two guards values the defensive end more, right?
mhm.
That's why I think he's more valuable. You bring a guy in, he's annoying everywhere he goes. But if we're being realistic, he's he's annoying from the standpoint that he's gonna be like that. You're out there trying to like you're at a barbecue. Look, we always make the joke, somebody being invited to the cookout, right? He's that guy where if you're out there trying to enjoy your hot dog, you're trying to enjoy your burger, you're trying to enjoy your ribs. I love my hey, sliding the real Shane.
Sliding on real
Sliding the real. So
with that
if you're
salt.
like if you're out there trying to have a good time, you're trying to enjoy your food. Pat Bev is always gonna be that guy that's gonna be like the gnat or the fruit fly. He's always gonna be right there, always gonna be right there in your face, right there in your ear, your eye. Those bugs always get into places where it's super annoying, right? They don't have any other guards on the team anymore that fill that void. They traded the number one guy away.
Yeah, like to me, the reason the reason I don't like it is, like I said, I don't think him and Dame can play together. It's a small
Well,
backcourt,
we
and I
we
feel like if they had found a way to where, say, they shipped out Chris Middleton, right, and it
Mhm.
was in the backcourt was Dame and Drew, I like that a hell of a lot more.
Well, of course.
Mainly
Well, of
because
course.
you
Of
have that
course.
defensive versatility where you could have a guy that could guard 1 through 3. But really, Pat Bev is, at the end of the day, he's 6'1", and you got him next to a 6,
Yeah.
and that's your starting backcourt, possibly.
No, 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 no.
I feel like he wouldn't be able to help them in the playoffs at all.
No, no, no. I understand that. And I mean, if we go back a few episodes, I think, the listeners can agree. That's one of those things that I think we both agreed on. That's going to be the downfall of Milwaukee. That was a move that was a mistake. It even I said it. I said it when the move happened. As much as I love Dame, bro, my whole ride to work today. I know this is a super random tangent. My whole ride to work today is raining outside. I'm sending, I sent like some Marco Polo like video messages to my wife while I was driving. And as soon as I shut those off, I turned on, my rap playlist on Spotify. Hey, if we get enough followers, I'll release my rap playlist, by the way, just so y'all can listen to the same things that I listen to. But I'm listening to the list, and one of the songs that came up was one of my favorite Dame Lillard songs. Dame, if you're listening to this, one of my favorite songs of yours, Baggage Claim. Flights across the country, get into a bag, pledge allegiance to the squad, never to a flag. One of my favorite songs of yours, man. If you hear this, please jump on our podcast. Help us, come on now. We love you. But I said it early on, as soon as that trade went down, you got rid of your best defensive guard for one of the best offensive guards in the league. It's not a knock, it's just reality. So
It's not an insult. That is just a
yeah,
fact of
there,
life.
there you go.
Yeah,
We're always going to get wrestling references on the pod. Yeah. So
yeah.
that so that was back to my point. So for that reason, I still like the idea of them getting Pat Bev. Of course, they're not going to play them together. And if they have any common sense, they're not going to play them together. They're going to bring Pat Bev off the bench just like he's been. I don't, correct me if I'm wrong. I don't think he started a game since he's been there.
Yeah, that's the main reason why I don't why that's the main reason why I say leave it. I
But
just
no,
think
to
like
me,
I
to
like what
me,
he brings to the team. I
to
just
me, I look to me, but to me, I look at it as the complete opposite, bro. Like I look at it as the complete opposite. It's I get that he doesn't bring anything to the starting lineup, but I think that Milwaukee's
I'm just
kind of
saying like you know what I mean? It's what I'm saying is like given like that they leaned so heavily onto the offensive side, like what you're
right, right,
saying,
right.
I just feel like
Now they're having to cover their steps.
Pat
They're
Bev would
they're
be a nice move if Drew and Dame was your starting back.
Well, but
But
here's
it's
the
not.
thing.
So I just
But
wonder
here's the
like what
thing.
his
If Drew,
impact would be
but
going
we could
forward.
but
Is
we
what I'm
could
saying.
argue, if they had Drew and Dame, would they even make a move for a guy like Pat? That's why I'm saying like I think that the move that they made was smart because now they're trying to cover their steps. I think they're realizing that they messed up letting a guy like Drew go. And that's why Pat, if you look at defensive guards in the league right now, Pat is one of the best that they could have gone after.
Yeah, he's
He
still
is
really good.
small, but he's tenacious as hell.
Right.
So I think that he was one of the smartest moves that they could have made. I get what you're saying with like it leaves them super small, but that's a hole that Milwaukee dug themselves into when they let a guy like Drew go.
Right. And basically to me, this almost feels like it to a small like to a smaller degree. It's kind of they're basically trying to correct a mistake,
Mm-hmm.
kind of the same way that Dallas had to do for the Grant Williams situation. Like they brought him in for one thing, it didn't pan out. Now they're having to like give up stuff to go get somebody else to upgrade that position.
Mm-hmm.
Milwaukee, like I said, went heavily to the offensive side, and now they realize, oh man, that was our best defender. Like they didn't know that before. And then now you having to sign Pat Bev to try and help you be a better defensive team, even though he may not even be able to help you that much on that end. He may help you in the locker room, but on the floor, he may not even be playing that much. Like once it comes down to it, so that's why I say leave it. But
I
with that
feel
being
you.
said, like we
I
got a
feel
couple more things to get to. So before we run out of time, I won't do love it or leave it for these, but I want to point them out just because they happen. So Boston, they made a shrewd move. They made a trade with Philly where they gave up a second round pick for Jaden Springer. I feel like that helps them defensively on that side. He had some pretty good defense against Luka Doncic the other night, even though Luka lit them up like a Christmas tree. But what else is new with the league?
As
Um,
a GM in the league, I told you I'd always be that guy. There's no way that I'm making moves within my conference, and I'm damn sure not making moves within my division. But
right.
keep
I,
going.
I, but yeah, like I just think like that move in particular, like they needed another like defender they wanted to add to the roster. I don't mind it. It's a shrewd move for them.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and then Dennis Schroeder and Thaddeus Young get sent to Brooklyn. Thaddeus Young goes back to Brooklyn. He's been there, seems like forever. They made that deal for Spencer Dinwiddie, who was later waived by the Raptors.
Right.
Now, for Brooklyn, I like Dennis Schroeder. I think it's a decent move for them. Thaddeus Young is just a body at this point, but he's still an effective player. Now,
He fits in the right situation.
right, like he's just a solid pro. He's a good dude to have on the roster. Like he's been a productive player for forever. Maybe
He
not a star, but very good.
to me, if you substitute rings for longevity, he's basically like an Andre Iguodala.
Yeah,
Like
like
he
he's Andre Iguodala without like playing for like the
That's what
best
I'm
team
saying.
ever.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah, like yeah, it's like that whole that thing that they put out the other day about is Tobias Harris the what
I
was it?
saw that. I can't even remember it because it was so random. I know what you're
What was
talking
it? It was like
about.
is Tobias Harris the
It
Kevin
was
Durant of Tobias Harris's or something like that?
it was like, yeah, I think it was like it's Tobias Harris, the Kevin Durant of, and then no, there was another player thrown in there.
Right.
It was something super random, but it was no. And the funniest thing
But it
about
was
it
like
was
Jeremy Grant and
that's what it was.
Rudy
That's who it.
Gay and Tobias Harris.
No. That's what it was. I think the thing was. I think it was Jeremy. Was it Jeremy Grant was the Kevin Durant of Tobias Harris's. And when I saw this, the first thing I did, I saw this and I sent it to you. And I'm
Yeah.
sitting here and I'm like, what the fuck are they talking about? And look, see, I was so annoyed by that y'all finally got me to curse on this podcast. I was like, what in the world are they talking about? And as soon as I sent it to you, the first thing that blew me is you texted me back and you were like, that makes sense. I'm like, this motherfucker.
Exactly. Yeah, it's one of those deals, man. Like I said, I mean, like it for Brooklyn because they at least got Schroeder. Um,
Nah, shooter's big though. Shooter's big.
but like that
Should still be a Laker, but we won't even get into that right now.
but we will talk about who is a Laker, and that's Spencer Dinwiddie. Spencer Dinwiddie was claimed off the buyout market by the Los Angeles
Yeah,
Lakers. He was
man, yeah,
deciding
man.
between, huh?
I say, yeah, man.
Yeah, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Spencer Dinwiddie with the Lakers. I guess he had his pick between Dallas and LA. He could have returned to Dallas where he played 2 seasons,
Hmm.
but he chose to sign with LA. Now, that's one I will say. Spencer Dinwiddie, he's we've talked about him before. To me, he's one of my favorite players as far as getting to the basket. Like
Hmm.
at 6'5", a little under 6'6". I love his quickness off the dribble, always have.
Hmm.
Love his ability to make big shots. Like, even though, I have a theory that people with goatees are untrustworthy, but that's neither here nor there. Uh, but the Lakers go out and get Spencer Dinwiddie. So, James, Dinwiddie to the Lakers. Love it or leave it. We got one more after this.
Moving it to the future, bro. And I know, of course, people are gonna listen to this podcast and look at me and be like, of course, of course. I love it. I
I,
I love I love it. I love it 100%, man. Just for the reasons that you already said. A guard, 6'5",
big guard.
that yes, with this team has been the most successful with big guards. The only exception is like, like the Derek Fisher realm. Like we need big guards around him. We had guys like Sasha Vujacic, we had a Kobe Bryant. We had guys that could slide down into the guard role every now and then, like a Trevor Ariza. The Lakers have always thrived with bigger guards. So I think that I think that's something that can really help. And another thing that's worth pointing out, we look at the time that Spence spent in Dallas right before he was moved to Brooklyn. Dude was shooting 40% from three.
Yeah, that was the
With
biggest improvement I
uh
think in his career by far.
yes, yes. That something else that can definitely help the Lakers. I mean, we've had to worry about being a team. We're trying to work on the inside. I mean, right now, leading scorer, leading rebounder, as crazy as it is to believe, is this guy named Anthony Davis. I don't know how the hell that shit happened, but uh, somehow, I don't know if they left his bones in the kiln a little bit longer to where
He's
they
been
weren't
he's
as
been he's been
uh,
spending more time on the floor than the training table. I love it.
yeah. Like I said, I don't know if they left, I don't know if they left his legs in the kiln long enough to where they weren't as brittle. But I I mean it's good, but it's also kind of disappointing at the same time because I'm like that the Spencer move is big for LA because it helps to spread the floor. At the same time, it doesn't change the fact where there's so many other deficiencies with the roster. But if we're strictly looking at what we got with Spencer Dinwiddie, I love it. I love it. No questions about it. I love it. I think he's a very solid addition to the squad.
Yeah, I love it as well. Don't love the fact that he threw some shade at Dallas in his introductory presser. Uh, because I feel like what he did for Dallas was appreciated. I mean, I love Spencer Dinwiddie. I think he was a great addition. He hit some big shots for us. He paid immediate dividends as soon as he got here. So, I like it for LA because he gives them another guy that can create their own shot, which I feel like the Lakers probably need, especially if like LeBron or AD aren't playing great. Helps them in the shooting department, especially if that
Very,
30%
very much so.
that
Oh no, I was just agreeing with you. I said you said he helps in the shooting, but I said very much so.
he definitely helps with the shooting department as long as he can be around that 40% from three. If that's the case, he is a major pickup because you didn't have to give up anything for him. The Lakers are one of
They
the teams
they
that
they signed him. They signed him for 1.5, bro.
yeah. And if the Lakers somehow make a run and win the championship, Spencer Dinwiddie gets $1 as a
That's a
bonus
very
on his contract.
yeah, that's a very big if because look, even as a diehard, I'm also a realist. We ain't winning that shit this year.
But yeah, but look, if they do win the championship, then yeah, get your bag, even if it's like, yeah. But anyway, like I like the move. I'm gonna say I love it. We got one more, and we're gonna go to Philly again for this. So Charlotte, after they had acquired Kyle Lowry in the Terry Rozier deal a few weeks ago, they went out and during this trade deadline, Charlotte
He
decided
got a
to
he got a big booty, so I call him Kyle Lowry. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
yes.
Sorry. I'm
Uh,
sorry. I'm sorry. It's late. I'm sorry.
you're sorry.
Sorry. That's sorry. Sorry. Uh, uh,
But anyway, so Kyle Lowry was bought out by Charlotte and he was acquired by the Philadelphia 76ers. Now, that one, I'll go ahead and say I'm not like crazy about it because I feel like Kyle Lowry, hopefully going back to kind of like his hometown team, hopefully he still has something left in the tank, but it feels like he doesn't. So I'm gonna just say leave it, but for what he can bring, still veteran presence, the mentor for Tyrese Maxey, like it for that. But as far as on the court, I'm gonna say leave it. I don't think he really helps them that much.
Now it's
What say
funny.
you, Mr. Washington?
Yeah, it's funny.
Well,
I'm
but
act I'm
on Tuesday morning,
actually
huh? What?
uh I'm actually going to go on the opposite on this one and say that I disagree with you, and I'm gonna say that I love it. And the reason that I love it,
Because you like ass. That's what it is.
I'm an ass man.
Uh,
They ain't ready. But look,
Let's do
no,
this again before you go on, real quick. Let's do this again. If you are listening to this at this point, because we're about to finish up, if you just hear what we're saying right now, make sure to comment below that ass though. The emoji. If you listen,
you
if
gonna
you're
look,
listening,
you gonna
go ahead
look,
and drop
you
it in
see,
the comment section below.
you gonna make me forget what the hell I was gonna say. All right. So no, all
And
right,
you love
so
it.
no, so hear me out. So the reason, so you say you leave it, the reason that I actually love it, I love it. Yeah, random sound effects. The reason that I actually love it, I agree with you. He probably ain't about to bring shit to the roster, bro. I agree with you on that. However, I'm also thinking future minded with it. And I'm at the point now where I think when it comes to Kyle Lowry, I'm not saying this in a negative way at all. He's looking at his twilight.
Oh yeah, he's done. Yeah,
And from
it's the last day.
no, and from that standpoint, Philly is the final, it's the perfect final spot. He's from Philly. He's from Pennsylvania. So
I live in Pennsylvania.
that, I mean, shout out to State College. I mean, Shane, we still, hey, ladies and gentlemen, before I finish my Kyle Lowry point, I need to mention this again. One of these days, I know we've been promising it for about a year and a half. Um, we owe you guys an episode as to how we met, how we became best friends. Fuck that. How we became brothers.
And why
Um,
we're even doing this right now.
yeah, yes, and why we're even doing this right now. So one of these days you guys will gain an understanding. Shane, I I ain't got the money right now, but if I did, I would drive up tomorrow and hit you with a people's elbow. So that we could finally get that shit done. But
We just have so many things that come up,
yeah,
so many activities.
I'm trying. All
What the
right.
episode? Damn.
I'm trying. All right. So yeah, but back to my Kyle Lowry thing. To counter your to I know to counter your leave it, I love it, bro. I love it for the reason that I think this is his final stop. That's he's he's an NBA champion. He is going to, if they do what they should do, he's going to have a statue outside of, I don't even know what they call it now. Is it Scotiabank or is it called something else? I don't know what they call it. But
Jurassic Park.
well, he's going to he's gonna have a statue in Toronto, which is well deserved. Um I,
Will it be cheeked up?
of course it has to be.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Shane, I'm not finna sit here and talk about it another dude's ass, man. I'm not.
Bro, it's part of the deal.
I'm trying.
You go there
Now,
just for the
so
cheesesteaks, bro.
Nah, man. Look, I go to Philly for cheesesteaks. I'm not going to Toronto for cheek steaks. I'm not that hungry. I'm not that
Speak for
hungry.
yourself. No, I'm just kidding. But but no,
No, but
no,
no, like I
I'm with you,
no, but
bro.
when it comes to no, when it comes to Kyle Lowry, moving back to Toronto, I mean, I'm sorry, to Philly. No, I love it. I love it because, like I said, I think he's understanding that his career is about to wrap up and he wants to end it. The only other thing I would see happening is, say, like, he finishes this year out with Philly, they send him back to Toronto on like a 1 day and then he hangs it up.
Yeah.
I
It makes a lot of sense, like for the reasons you mentioned. Like it's Philly. He went to Villanova. Like there's a connection with Nick Nurse because that's who he won the title with.
Mhm.
It's a contending team. It remains to be seen if they stay in that conversation without Joel Embiid for the foreseeable future. But
They're not.
if he's back for the playoffs and they're still in position, they could be dangerous. So,
Yeah.
like I said, I don't know how much he'll help them on the floor. He probably, as a backup, I'm sure he'll still bring some juice as a veteran. But yeah, I think he's pretty much on his last leg. So it may be it's a feel good move. But as far as like if it's a needle mover, I don't think so. So with that
I
being
agree.
said, ladies and gentlemen, if you have been listening to us this far, I want to thank you for making JWJ a part of your day. Again, make sure you follow the JWJ podcast wherever you get your podcasts. We're on almost every platform. We're on Anchor, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, and more. If you are listening to this on Apple Podcasts, be sure to rate, review, and subscribe. If you're listening to us on YouTube when we put this out, make sure you hit like, subscribe, comment below that ass though if you got to this point, and that notification bell to be notified whenever we drop new episodes. We're also on Facebook. You guys know the drill. We're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, and we're on Twitter at the JWJ Podcast. If you want to follow us individually, you can find me at It's a Thomas Thing. You can find James at Title Towns Mayor.
Yep.
One thing that we will be doing, we talked to a couple of our followers that have been interacting with us here lately. Thank you guys. We appreciate you.
We'll
Um,
shout y'all out very soon.
right.
Promise.
And here's what we want to do. We want to make a mailbag episode. So if you guys would like to weigh in on anything we've discussed, if you just have any question you want to know about any team in the league, WNBA, high school, like if you have tactical questions, anything, if you want to weigh in on our podcast, drop us a DM on Instagram. Hit us in our email at djwjpodcast@gmail.com. We
We
will
got
get
what?
a chance to include you
We
guys.
got what? We got what? 3 so far, right?
Yeah, we got 3 so far. Hopefully, if we can get that to maybe like 6 or 10, we can have a whole episode where we just answer you guys' questions and we make a whole episode about that. So,
Definitely.
um, again, if you want to weigh in on anything, hit us in our DM at the JWG Podcast on Instagram. Email us at the JWG Podcast at gmail.com. Until next time, thank you guys for your support. And thank you for lacing up and locking in with JWJ.